Welcome back to this week's story at graveyarddance.com. This case you're about to hear is one that has been requested by a few of our viewers for a while now. I've been meaning to cover it for a while, but I had some medical hiccups recently and wasn't able to really do much writing for some time. Thankfully, I had several stories written up and pre-recorded so I didn't fall too far behind. This is a sad and tragic story of a man's life cut short for no good reason. Up until February 9, 1960, Aldoplh Coors III was living the best life. At just the tender age of 44, he had everything a man could want in life: a beautiful wife, 4 amazing kids who looked up to him and loved him, and a job that, although it wasn't his dream job, it did pay very well. Born on the 12th of January of 1915, he grew up in strict, but very privileged home. His grandfather Aldoplh Coors along with a friend, Jacob Schuler, had started the Coors Brewing Company after buying a recipe for Czech immigrant named William Silin. I'm not really sure what they paid for that recipe, but I think it's safe to say they most likely made their money back more than a few times on the investment. Sadly though, as much as you make sometimes can never replace that of what you lose. Such is this case you're about to hear. The company started in Golden, Colorado in 1873. It became a massive success. By 1880, Coors made another smart business move. He bought out his partner to become the sole owner of Coors Beer. The move would go on to make him one of the wealthiest men alive in those days. He even managed to survive Prohibition by selling malted milk in a drink which was like beer called near beer but without the alcohol. Aldoplh Coors was a brilliant businessman and a survivor. Although he was a great businessman for the time, for whatever reason, on June 5 of 1929, he was staying at the Cavalier Hotel in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and either jumped from the 6th floor room or was pushed. In those days, there was no security cameras, and there was no witnesses, but his official cause of death was determined to be that of a suicide. By now, Coors' son Aldoplh Jr. was on board with the family business and everything looked like there would be nothing but clear skies ahead, especially after the ending of Prohibition when they could get back to doing what they did best, which was selling good old American-made beer. Ahead of much of the competition, Coors became the first beer company in 1959 to use the aluminum cans that we recycle today. If you've ever made a few bucks selling aluminum cans, thank the Coors company. Anywho, while his dad was running the family business, young Aldoplh Coors III was growing up to be a very well-liked and well-adjusted young man. Anyone who knew him would often talk about how kind he was and intelligent and just an all-around good person he was, although he did have a severe stutter in which he was very self-conscious of. Like his father and his youngest brother Joseph Coors, Aldoplh graduated from Cornell University, where he was president of the Quill and Dagger Society and a member of the Kappa Alpha Society. Coors was also a semi-professional baseball player. In 1940, he married the love of his life, Mary Urquhart Grant. By this time, he had managed to use his keen intelligence and family help to rise up to become the CEO and chairman of the board of the Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. Not that he had any choice in the matter though. His father, Coors Jr. had made it known to his sons, that if they wished to stay in the family will, they would help run the beer empire, or else. Coors Jr. wasn't known to be a warm and caring or overly fatherly type, but he did help mold a company that would help secure his family's future, although as you'll soon see, it came at a terrible cost. Aldoplh was known to be a happy man who was known to be good to his employees and never talked down to them. His employees loved him and wanted to do the best job they could for him. Everything in his life was going just the way it was supposed to go, that is until that fateful day on February the 9th of 1960 on a small background country bridge on his way to work one day. Sadly, everything he had ever worked for and built in life would come to an abrupt end on this sad day. Later that same morning, a milkman discovered Coors International Travel all on the bridge, which was blocking the workers' ability to get around him. He got out of his truck to see if anyone needed any help and noticed that the car was still running and the radio was playing but no one was in the car. He also noticed what looked like a brown or rust color puddle of a liquidy type substance in the center of the bridge, along with the man's hat and glasses. He called out but no one answered. He did the only thing he knew how. There was no cell phones in those days, so he got in the car and moved it to the side of the road so he could get his truck around it to finish his deliveries that day. At his next stop though, he called the police and had told them what he had seen. The next day, his wife Mary got a ransom letter in the mail asking for $500,000 for the safe return of her husband. It instructed her not to call the police or FBI. Only just a few years prior, the case of the Lindbergh baby kidnapping had turned kidnapping into a federal offense and one that the FBI could step in and investigate. One of the first things they noticed about the letter was the distinct font used with the typing of the letter and the watermark of the paper. Another clue that came in was folks in the area had reported a canary yellow Mercury driving around the area that no one recognized. Authorities soon found the owner of the Mercury, who claimed his name was Walter Osborne, but a little checking proved this to be false. His name was actually Joseph Corbett. Corbett Sr. didn't fit the description of the man in the yellow Merc, but according to an insurance policy that he had at a previous job, he had a son named Joseph Corbett Jr. and he absolutely fit the description. More than that, he fit the violent profile. Only 9 years earlier, this upstanding citizen shot a man in the back of the head and claimed it was self-defense. The jury didn't buy it and sentenced him to a maximum security prison. He soon was transferred to a minimum security institution for good behavior where he escaped. Go figure. Who would have seen that coming? Sarcasm intended. Anywho, he started planning his next big crime, kidnapping the heir of the Coors family for ransom. Corbett studied Adolph's daily habits from a distance, watching when he went to and from work, and had his habits down pat. He also knew that Coors was a very down-to-earth guy, and although he was a very rich man, he drove himself to work without any bodyguards or security. He decided to set up an ambush for the beer mogul on February the 9th of 1960. He drove his father's yellow Mercury up to the bridge on Turkey Creek Bridge and waited. Adolph only lived a couple of miles from the one-lane bridge. As his car approached that morning, he saw the yellow car with its hood up and it was blocking his way across the bridge. Being the kind-hearted man he was, he asked Corbett if he needed any assistance. He told Aldoplh that he needed someone to push the car out of the road. When he got out of the car to help the stranded motorist, he pulled a gun, and what happened next is foggy at best. Some say he was shot in the back there on the bridge, while others say he was taken down a country road some 20 miles away and shot in the back there while trying to run. Either way, Aldoplh Coors III would never see his family again. Although his wife Mary got a ransom note the following day, no other contact was ever initiated by Corbett. It's unknown if he even planned on letting Coors go if it was paid, or if he planned on killing him all along. His remains were found 7 months after the kidnapping by a local hiker named Ed Ridley Green Jr. After he reported it to police, they went and found various parts of his skeletal remains as well as his pants and a few personal belongings. What finally proved it was him though was his dental records. His body had 2 bullet holes to the back, that and soil and plant samples found under the car that matched the area Coors was from. Another thing that helped seal the case was finding the typewriter that matched the ransom letter in Corbett's apartment. He wasn't the most brightest bulb by any means. With all the evidence they now had, all they had to do was find him. Authorities was hot on the trail of Corbett now. By March of 1960, the FBI added Corbett to its 10 most wanted list. The yellow Merc was found burned out in New Jersey, but when Corbett was added to the 10 most wanted, tips soon started coming in that a man who strongly resembled him was seen driving a red Pontiac in Vancouver, Canada. When police found the car, it was outside a motor and motel. Police knocked on the door and arrested him without incident. He even told them, "I'm the man you're looking for." Bet y'all can't guess what happens next. On March 19, 1961, Joseph Corbett Jr. was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Did he stay there? Of course not. They let him out, didn't they? He had a long criminal history and only murdered at least 2 men. That's all. What harm could it do? He was released from prison on parole in 1980. Thankfully, he only took 1 more life after his release, which was his own. On August 24, 2009, at the age of 81 years old, while living at these apartments in Denver, he ended his existence with a single self-inflicted gunshot to the head. Goodbye and good riddance. The loss of Aldoplh was extremely hard on his family, his kids in particular. Aldoplh IV cried himself to sleep every night waiting for his father to come home until he found out what had happened. He had to grow up without a dad because of selfish greed. Aldoplh's brothers did the best they could to continue the family business, and although they aren't in charge of the entire operation anymore, they are all still involved in the business in one way or another. Coors beer has become a cultural icon of sorts. In 1977, the beer played a major part of the storyline of the Burt Reynolds movie, Smokey and the Bandit, which also starred Sally Field, Jerry Reed and Jackie Gleason, as well as that beautiful black Trans Am. Although their sales may not reach that of some rivals like Anheuser-Busch, it's still a refreshing beverage that's enjoyed by many. My husband absolutely loves it and says it's his favorite by far. If you liked today's story, please help us out by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more creepy content just like the story you just saw. We cover all kinds of spooky content. Till next time!